know better what they want. I will go and build something without talking to them.
Right.
That is not the right strategy and will not work.
Ilan, Frank, so good to have you here. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
We're going to have so much fun over these next 20 minutes because this is hugely relevant to what's happening today. Vice President of Product at Slack, a tool that I believe everybody watching this obviously uses and slowly conquering the world. But we're going to have an amazing conversation about enterprise software. You have had 20 years of experience in the space in leadership positions, and most recently now at Slack. And one of the things that we talked about was that a unifying line throughout this journey of yours is the fact that you're passionate about collaborative software. Is that an accident or is that intentional?
It was not an accident. Enterprise software is an accident. I accidentally ended up in enterprise software because my cousin was a venture capitalist back in the early days and pointed me to a startup that he invested in that happened to be in the enterprise space. And that was my initial journey in Silicon Valley back in 1997. And that's what started enterprise software for me. But collaboration, once I found collaboration, I really found a groove and a passion, and I've been pretty much there ever since.
Okay, so take me back, to the beginning of your journey. You're just starting out. You're starting your path as you're entering, enterprise software. What are some of the sort of the things that, looking back, you would tell yourself back then? Some of the earned secrets along the way.
Okay, we're back.
We're back in business, the same place. Ilan, what are the earned secrets that you've over these 20 years? If you go back 20 years, what would you tell young Ilan?
With regards to enterprise software, it's really important to focus on the end users. This is something that we didn't know 20 years ago. It's maybe a little bit more obvious now, but that's something that's critically important. I think what's more relevant now, which is interesting, is that everyone seems to know that enterprise software also has to be designed well, and adoption metrics have to be taken into consideration. But we have seemed to forget the fact that enterprise software still has something different from consumer, which is enterprise software has a user and a chooser. And it is important. The chooser is the person who makes the budget decisions, the person who makes the buying decisions. And it's important to consider them in product management just as much as the end user.
Why is that? So in my mind, I have a sales cycle. I go to the enterprise. I pitch to the director who has the authority to sign off on $100,000 license. But the users are the team players who at the end are the ones running around and using my software for whatever they're doing.
Right. So the dynamic is that this day, enterprise software is more coming up. From bottom up rather than top down. So rather than CIO making a decision and saying everyone's going to use this, enterprise software is actually being found by those ICs, those individual contributors that have the jobs, and they want to be more productive at work. They're looking for tools to make them more productive at work. So that's why it's important to focus on the end user. But a lot of enterprise software companies, of course, like Slack, are doing so. Right. But it's important at the same time, one of the things that people maybe don't realize about Slack is that we focus equally on the top down. What is it going to be important for the enterprise buyer? And for Slack and for productivity tools specifically, that is productivity and innovation. What are the tools that are going to help my employees transform themselves to be more productive, to be more innovative?
So just going back to that note, because it's fascinating to me, what you're saying is that there has been a trend changing, that if previously you go to the ICO of the company and you're the CIO and you go and you pitch a product and you get them to buy into it, and then from top down they disseminate it into their 1,000 employees or so. Today you're going after the team players, and if they love your product, they'll start adopting it throughout the organization until there's no point but to actually get it custom for the organization, right?
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. And then it bubbles up into the CIO. The CIO sees it
Yeah.
as known maybe as shadow IT at this point. And
Okay.
now you as an enterprise software company want to sell to the CIO. This is when the CIO is going to look for different things. Their requirements are very, very different from the end users. Certainly,
Right.
they want their end users to be productive, but they also have to look after beyond cost. They have to look after compliance, security,
Security.
administration, performance. Those are the things that really matter to them when they're shopping for software. So you have to make sure that your product also addresses these needs.
Fascinating. So it sounds to me like you're almost developing two products, because even with, let's look at Slack as a collaboration tool. On one hand, you have the end user, which is myself. I love sharing my files. I love all the marketplace with the integrations. My life is nothing like it was 5 years ago. If I had Slack in high school, my high school would look extremely different than it does now, because now it's incredible. I'll just say that it's incredible. But there's all of this compliance and security that I'm not even aware of. For example, I work at Hippo, and I don't really know what security goes behind the scenes to make sure that the data that I pass along is secured. But I'm sure that my CIO knows it very well, right?
Right. Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
That's exactly right. And early on in Slack, we actually did that. We actually, and I've spoken to many enterprise software companies that are starting up and given this advice is that early on, we actually separated out product management into self-service and into enterprise. And the self-service part of product management really focused on metrics, like adoption, usage of different features, NPS and satisfaction of end users, the love of the product and all that.
Right.
In the enterprise side, the side that I led, focused exclusively on making sure that new industries, new geographies can actually obtain this software. Each one has a different set of compliance requirements, security requirements, administration requirements. So that's how we looked at the market in a very different lens.
But Ilan, your colleague has the luxury of having data from millions of users, getting, aggregating, getting NPS scores through logic, through the usage. You're coming in and you have a handful of, large customers that you're trying to get information from. How do you get an NPS score from those individuals who are buying the software? Because, every product class that I ever taught, they told us your customers don't know what they want. Ask them what they need, right? So how do you go about that? Because your metric is their satisfaction.
Yeah, that's right. So, by the way, that phrase that you just quoted has many times been misconstrued, and especially recently.
Teach
And
me.
I want to make sure that people listening to this that are starting enterprise software companies understand that yes, that is true. That customers don't necessarily know the solution. They will ask for something that sounds like the solution, but what you need to do as a good PM is to bring them back to the problem. State the problem, and then your job is to come up with the solution. But a lot of people misinterpret that statement that you had to the customers don't know what they want. I know better what they want. I will go and build something without talking to them.
Right.
That is not the right strategy and will not work. So the answer to your question, it's a really good question. With enterprise software, it's different. You can't do broad, surveys. Quant work is not going to really work because you just don't have that many data points.
Exactly.
But you can certainly go and talk to people. So the first thing that I recommend for enterprise software company product managers to do is to set up a CAB, a customer advisory board. Bring in your top 20 customers, meet with them on a regular basis, once every quarter, once every 6 months, whatever makes sense for you. Present to them what we do with our CABs and what we've done since really 4 years ago when I joined Slack.
Wow.
Is we meet regularly. We present the roadmap and get their feedback on what we are showing. We have special sections. The next section of the CAB, it's a 1-day session usually. The next session is really to talk about 3 different drill down areas that we're planning on invest in recently, or in the near future.
Right.
And we really want to get their input on. So drill downs into specifics. And then the last section is really for them to talk to us and hear their feedback and to talk to one another. So the best part of that day, a lot of times, is just having them talk to us and again to each other about things that are working, things that are not working, things that they've tried, and learning from one another, and we learn from them as well.
That is so cool.
That's one of the best parts of the day.
Are these pro users in the sense that do they love Slack, or is that something that's common among all of them, or are some of them a little bit more hesitant?
So in this case, these are all people. That's not a criteria that I use. It's not a litmus test that I use for
Okay.
getting people on the cab or not. They happen to mostly love Slack because they are responsible for rolling it out
Right.
in their organization. One thing that is important to remember in enterprise software is that those admins, they're your champions.
Right.
Those admins, the people that are working with your software and managing your software, they've staked their career on the success of your product because that's their career. And so it's important to listen to them. It's important to treat them well. And so they do mostly love Slack. They are mostly
That makes,
champions.
yeah, obviously the more they like.
Not what I don't ask that question.
Ilan, what happens when there's a clash? There's a clash because you have a roadmap for enterprise. Your colleague has a roadmap for the self-serve. There's a finite resources as in any organization, and now you have to make some decisions. How do you quantify the impact of these two fields which are connected but disconnected?
Yeah, a lot of it is art more than science, especially when you're talking about enterprise to enterprise. Security to admin is pretty easy, right? You just look at the TAM or the revenue impacted or the pipeline that's blocked based on the features. We have reports that show us exactly how much pipeline is associated with these big security features or big administration features. That's easy. On the retail side, it's also pretty easy because the numbers, the metrics, tell you where to invest. We have a lot of experiments that we run there and see which one, proves to be better. Enterprise to retail is a little bit more difficult. And for that, what we've done is we have company priorities. There are always somehow there are three, but there are three company priorities. And your initiative, similar to a company pitching to a VC, we pitch internally.
Wow.
And it has to align to one of these three initiatives. And if it does, then those are the teams that get the resources for the year.
So cool. I'm so upset. I'm so upset that we're more than halfway through because every question that you answer, I have 10 more questions that I want to ask.
I'll try to keep them short.
No. This has been perfect. Please don't. Ilan, looking back now, or actually looking forward, we can't avoid the fact that we're, in the global pandemic, and the world has changed forever, and our workforce has changed forever. I'd love your take on where are we headed in terms of collaborative tools, productivity, as the world is shifting more and more towards remote collaboration, and either Slack or off Slack. How do you perceive our collaborative nature digitally as the years are going to go forward?
Yeah, well, so it's certain that we're not going to go back to whatever normal was.
Yeah.
I do think that the office is not a thing of the past. We will have offices again. We will all be in offices. It will be slightly different. I think we've all realized that people can actually just be just as productive at home,
if not more productive.
Minus taking care of kids and all that. But we'll go to a world where kids are at school and parents can work. But I think that the thing that is the trend that we've seen, and this happened before COVID, by the way, is that responsibility and authority for decision making is brought down the org chart, right? It used to be that decisions went up and they were made at the top, and then those orders came down. But it's almost reversed. Decisions are being made in teams. And what's important for executives is now to understand all the decisions that are being made so they can better align and guide the team.
That is so cool.
That's a healthy thing. That's good for large organizations to function that way. And I see in my work with organizations that are transforming themselves that more and more of them are working to that. But I think that is that kind of reverse information flow is a new area that's going to be explored with tools. I don't think that that's an area that really has been explored with enterprise software.
That is so so cool. Okay, and now you're 20 years later, you're still in enterprise software, collaborative tools, productivity tools. Why are you going to go into your 21st year? I mean, what does it do for you that you're in this, unique space and in your unique position?
Yeah, I'll tell you, and I don't mean to bring this back to Slack. We can talk about other things, but specifically, 4 years ago when I joined Slack and I went and visited my first customer, and it's a large bank, in the East Coast, and I met with an employee there, and she told me I love my job more because I use Slack. Not I love Slack, which would also be great to hear, and I hear that a lot. But I love my job. I'm here 9 to 5. I enjoy what I do day to day more because of this tool. I'm happier here. When you can have that kind of effect on most of the waking hours of a person, their time away from their family, that kind of that is rewarding. That's a mission that I'm happy to get behind. And Slack is just one example of companies that are doing things like that, making people's lives easier and better at work.
And is it more the fact that you're more curious about enterprise software that you decided to focus on that space, or do you see yourself ever shifting to the self-serve?
I get it. I get enterprise software.
Okay.
I don't get consumer software. You build something and then either someone likes it, like you need a 14-year-old to like your product, and then all of a sudden, other people like it. I don't get that world.
Wow.
I definitely get enterprise software.
I love it. I love it. Okay, Ilan, give me, the broad picture of collaborative tools. Are we all moving more to real-time communication, multiple integrations? Because it seems to me, that it seems obvious that this is where we're headed. Is it more that we're going to see greater productivity with using these tools, or are we going to see more happiness levels or more satisfaction? Because I feel pretty productive right now, I have to say. I have, about a dozen Slack channels from, like 10 different segments, and like workspaces, and I feel pretty productive, and I'm wondering whether there's now the aim is to increase my productivity or increase my happiness level.
Yeah, I think that both go hand in hand, by the way. I think that people can be both productive and happy, and I think a lot of times they actually complement each other. So
Right.
if I'm able to be more productive, I'm able to be get more satisfaction out of my job. So I wouldn't think of happiness as like just socializing at work, or happiness as right. There's happiness from doing the work itself. I think that as far as where we're going, let me first take a quick second. I can't ever imagine going back to email. I mean, I can't ever imagine. In fact, I would use this as definitely a showstopper in any future company I go to.
Wow.
I couldn't imagine coming in the morning and opening up an inbox and sorting through 100 or 200 emails like I used to. It just seems so counterproductive to have my information sorted by someone else based on what subject they wrote and where they, when they sent the message. With Slack and channels, I dictate, where I work and what's important to me. I'm subscribing to the channels that are most important.
100%. You have it's a different type of control.
Of my day. It's so backwards for me to think about email right now.
100%.
As far as where we're going in the future, I think that there's no question. You can see this with Slack. You can see Teams, of course. They copied us, but whatever. It's you can see that channel-based communication, this type of subscribing to the project and the topics that I care about, is the wave of the future. By the way, the email is not different as far as the information that it carried.
Right.
The email also had topics. Right? Everything that you did in email was a topic. You were hiring someone. You were working on a project.
And when you had multiple CCs, you had a channel. You had a
exactly.
Right.
It just was disorganized. It was just organized, chronologically based on when people sent you messages. It just isn't organized well. So Slack is not like this is new type of work. It's just now organizing your work based on topics.
And one of the actually really inspiring things that I've experienced recently is using Superhuman as an email client, because they managed to reduce the formality of the email. Up until now, I felt an email, I felt this grave responsibility, like it's so formal. Dear sir, sincerely, Michael. Now with Superhuman, the way that they did it, the chat based. Same thing with Slack. When my manager here at Hippo slacks me, I feel the informality. It feels like an ongoing conversation with the same content that I would otherwise get in an email. It makes me respond faster. It makes me more confident. All of a sudden, I use emojis in my messages. I love using emojis. It sounds like a joke, but it's a serious thing. It makes everything it makes everything more fun.
Yeah, I agree. And more productive. We use emojis, by the way, for productivity. So when someone wants my attention in a channel, they put a file or something like that, I will use the eyes emoji to say that I'm looking at it. And then just tell them, like, calm down, I'm looking at it. I didn't miss your message. And then when I'm done, I put a green checkbox emoji saying it's done. I've finished my assignment, whatever it is, and that way they know, okay, this is done.
I'm starting to employ that with the team that I'm on right here. Ilan, this was so. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the generosity. This is so good. I know how busy you are. Before we leave, I need 3 words that you would use to describe yourself.
Okay, 3 words. There's one word.
However we want to do this.
There's one word that actually means like all 3 together.
Let's do it.
Which is kibbutznik. I grew up in En Chorod and moved to Minnesota at age 10. But the hardworking, collaborative and humble are things that I aspire to be in my job, and I learned those all before the age of 10.
Wow. Well, Kibbutznik said it all. You gave me the 3 words anyways afterwards. I love it. Ilan, toda rabah. Thank you very, very much. We didn't even mention the whole about J Ventures and working together, and it's been such a pleasure doing some due diligence with you, and I've been learning a lot from you and everybody else. But thank you for your time for this and for the fund, and I look forward to maintaining this relationship. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.